Our second speaker today is actually the triple alumna that I mentioned earlier from the U of L. This is Dr. Robin M. Bright, and she's a professor in the Faculty of Education at the University of Lethbridge. Her teaching career began in a grade 1 classroom populated by mostly English language learners. She quickly developed an interest in and love for how children view the exhilarating yet often confusing world of print. Robin's passion for how children develop as readers and writers began in her undergraduate years as a student teacher in the Faculty of Education at the U of L when teaching French to elementary students. These teaching experiences eventually drew her to a life as a researcher, writer, teacher, and teacher educator. Specifically, Robin teaches and researches both undergraduate and graduate students in the areas of language and literacy, early childhood and elementary education, teacher professional development, and literacy writing in children's young and adult literature. Robin was recognized with the University of Lethbridge Distinguished Teaching Award and as a Board of Governors teaching chair, and knows that such recognition is only possible with the kindness and support of her colleagues, students, and family. She's the author of several books, and her work has been published in several high-profile journals in the field of education. So all of that said, her topic of her last lecture today will be everything I really need to know I learned in university. Take it away, Robin.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here and to share this special day with you. I'd like to base this lecture on a lovely book written some time ago by Robert Fulghum, entitled All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten, a book of essays which contains a famous poem of the same title. The author, through this poem, suggests that if we return to the lessons we learned as 5-year-olds in kindergarten, there would be a newfound wisdom for us as adults. For instance, the poem reviews things like sharing with others, putting things back where they belong, washing your hands, that one seems particularly pertinent today, apologizing when you're wrong, and not touching things that don't belong to you. Well, at first glance, this is a simple poem. It speaks to our very essence. Why are we here? The one line that stands out to me is, learn some and think some. Many of you have noticed the plaque on the corner of the Link building. It says, I am still learning, and is a statement of humility, particularly appropriate for a university that reminds us that we never stop learning. And so, with thanks to Robert Fulghum, I would like to entitle this lecture, Almost All I Really Need to Know I Learned in University. When I began my educational journey right here at the University of Lethbridge, when there was only Arthur Erickson designed University Hall, rows of lonely study carrels on the 4th floor of the library, a bustling, crowded cafeteria, orange shag carpeting, the Worm, a giant winding path joining the parking lot up top with U-Haul and sheltered by a pliable white covering that shook violently in the wind, the wooden floor in the atrium built for our cabarets and dances, I think, Moses on the outside patio, and approximately 1,000 undergraduate students. All I knew then was that I never wanted to be a teacher. My favorite class in high school had been band, thanks to a passionate, caring, and wonderful teacher named Mr. Picarni. And so I decided that my major would be music. I wasn't the best flute player, but I worked extremely hard, practiced hours a day, and played with the U of L Wind Ensemble. It was a cohesive and supportive group. I felt I had found my place in the university. However, as time went on, I realized I did not have the background in theory that I needed in order to continue as a music major. I needed a different major. But the truth is, I enjoyed so many different areas, specifically philosophy, sociology, history, and modern languages. How would I choose? This probably never happened to any of you, but I chose the discipline in which I had the second highest number of courses. And I learned that changing your mind isn't a sign of weakness. but a celebration you could learn new things. I learned humility, that I wasn't actually suited for a particular goal. And I learned that changing your mind was not a sign of vulnerability, but one of strength. But I don't remember feeling like I had failed, more that one door closed, leaving the possibility that another could open. Each discipline that I loved was because of a professor, someone who was deeply committed to their subject and inspired in their teaching. They motivated me to want to do more, learn more, challenge myself to do well. People like Dr. Phil Butterfield, Dr. Reg Bibby, and Dr. Dieter Mueller. Dr. Mueller was a professor of ancient history, and I took his courses in ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Roman history. And while taking his Roman history course in my second year, a sad and unexpected thing happened. One day in February, Dr. Mueller was in front of our class, filled with enthusiasm and encouragement, showing us hieroglyphics that only he and a handful of world-renowned experts could decipher. And the next day, he was gone, murdered, killed by a disturbed man jealous his ex-wife was seeing Dr. Mueller. I lost one of the best teachers I knew that day. And I learned that the world isn't fair and doesn't always make sense. And I learned that it was the passion of a teacher, Dr. Mueller, who made history interesting to me. So with some input from my parents, who I credit with being my first and most important teachers, I changed my major to another area I enjoyed and had the second highest number of courses in, modern languages. French, to be specific. And I learned some decisions you make for yourself and some are made for you. That decision led to one day saying hello to two classmates, Darcy and Diane, whom I'd never met before. We became fast friends in that windowless language lab, trying to translate French songs and speeches together. Our friendship led to an opportunity to move to and study at the University of Sherbrooke in Quebec as part of an exchange program to improve our spoken French. Well, in mid-August, just prior to our third year in university, the three of us gathered in Edmonton with all our earthly possessions stuffed into 2 pieces of luggage each and boarded the CP railway bound for Montreal. We booked economy seats for their cheap price and found ourselves traveling for 3 straight days and 2 nights in cramped quarters, no sleeping berths for us, and lots of granola bars and bananas from the snack counter. We arrived in Montreal tired, haggard looking, hungry, and wondered how would we get to Sherbrooke. Eventually, we took the Greyhound bus, the 150 kilometers or so, to Sherbrooke. But with no place to stay, we bought a newspaper in the bus station and began phoning apartment ads. And that's when I made the discovery that I was learning a third language, the language of the Quebecois. To this day, I have no idea how, but we landed a furnitureless apartment, made it to campus, enrolled in classes, and learned to appreciate some of our differences and ignore the others. And I learned I could be homesick, especially when a package arrived from Alberta with cut stalks of wheat taped to the outside. Thanks, Mom. When it arrived, the 3 of us took a bus trip to Bishop's University, an English-speaking refuge we had discovered earlier. We found the library and a tape of Gordon Lightfoot singing Alberta Bound and wept quietly together with our heads down. And I learned that I could take a big risk, like moving to another province. I could learn to be resilient, face hardships. I could learn a new language and appreciate a new culture. I learned that I could be sad and lonely and miss those around me. but that I couldn't give up. Upon returning to the University of Lethbridge, my oral French speaking abilities greatly improved, notwithstanding the faux pas of running off to Bishop's University on occasion. I competed in a Mademoiselle Franco-Alberta competition based on language competence as an Anglophone, which just shows you how supportive and kind the French-Canadian Association in Lethbridge was. And I learned, you don't even know what life has in store for you. Not even close. I learned I could surprise myself. After completing my first undergraduate degree, I thought I was on my way to the Legislative Assembly in Alberta as a translator. The problem was that after driving to Edmonton, buying a new suit, and having a grueling hours-long interview, I didn't land my dream job. It was tough to be rejected, disappointing. I put all my energy into that one goal. I told everyone about it, and then it didn't work out. I thought about my family's disappointment, but they seemed remarkably calm about my devastation. I suppose they knew it would eventually work out. They had the benefit of more years of experience. And I learned I could feel lost and unsure about my future. What would I do? Well, I knew that in university I had found a home, a place where I felt welcomed and comfortable and lots that interested me. I felt proud of completing my Bachelor of Arts and Sciences, but I was still working part-time at Safeway, along with, I might add, one of my co-presenters, Dr. Shannon Spenceley. Who knew, eh, Shannon? So I returned to university that fall and took one disastrous semester in management, where I learned very quickly I had neither passion nor success. I learned it wasn't the end. It actually pointed me in a different direction, and one that I have never turned away from. On a whim, I visited the Faculty of Education. After all, my own dad was a very successful and much loved teacher and guidance counselor at Kate Andrews High School. Dad, Mr. Ryan, to his students, loved everything to do with his students, his school, his teaching, his profession. Dr. Lowen, then Dean of the Faculty, and yes, Dad to the present Dr. Lowen, Dean of the Faculty, allowed me to come into professional semester one. I recall he said, "We will let you into the program to start and check back with you in 4 weeks and see how things are going." And I never looked back. Suddenly, it became apparent to me what I should be doing with my life. I loved every minute of the courses, the papers, the planning, the instructors, and most importantly, the practicum. It was hard work, but it didn't feel like it. Student teaching was nerve-wracking, I'm not going to lie. And I had stomach aches every day because I wanted so badly to do a good job. I recall one especially interesting lesson. I was teaching grade 6 French and wanted my students to be able to learn and use prepositions. So my idea was that I would give each student un chapeau. I borrowed 30 golf hats from my friends and modeled how to play a game based on Simon Says. The students all stood up next to their desks and they would put their hats on or put them where I asked them to if I began with Simon dit, Simon says. I planned to say that their hats could go on their heads, in their desks, under their chairs, on a book, behind their backs, and on and on. When I was planning the lesson, I kept thinking of a boy in the class named Greg. Greg would and could wreak havoc with this lesson, I knew. I imagined him putting the hat or telling me to put the hat somewhere unspeakable. So every time I thought of a new place the hat could go, I asked myself, what would Greg do? Then I adjusted my lesson plan and my instructions, even where I would stand and what I would do, all based on that question. Dr. Petherbridge, my curriculum and instruction professor, came to watch that lesson. And it went quite well. Greg did a bit of performing, and I enthusiastically delivered the lesson and managed the game when Greg interrupted or found something funny to do. In our post-conference, Dr. Petherbridge asked me how the lesson went. And I recall saying that it went well for the most part, but it would have been better if Greg hadn't been there. Now, I didn't mean I didn't want him to be there. I just thought it would have gone perfectly without him there. And Dr. Petherbridge said something to me that I will never forget. He said, "It's because Greg is there that we call it teaching." And that day, I learned that teaching isn't about me. It's about the students, all the students, every single one of them. And I learned that teaching isn't supposed to be perfect. I learned that once I found my passion, I was fortunate. And though the path might not have been straightforward or easy, I knew it when I had arrived. Which brings me back to the title of this lecture, that almost all I really need to know I learned in university. The strange thing is, I only know these things now. And someday you will reflect on these years as I have done. At a certain point in your life, probably when too much of it has gone by, you will open your eyes and see yourself for who you are, and especially for everything that makes you you and different and special. Looking back to my university undergraduate years, I can see now that others saw in me what I didn't see in myself. And so as a professor of education, I've had the same opportunity to see the potential of my students. And in university, I learned I wanted to be a teacher. I've written a poem with the same title as this lecture. Almost all of what I really need to know I learned in university. And I want to say that it's not that I couldn't learn these lessons elsewhere, but I found them at university. So this is for you and my daughters, Amy and Erin. These are the things I learned. Be calm. Remain unsure. Entertain new ideas. You do not have to accept them. Leave the door to the unknown ajar. Do not see changing your mind as a sign of weakness. Maybe it means you learned something you didn't know before. Find your passion. Don't assume learning is about perfection. It's not. Accept feelings of being lost without losing hope. Surprise yourself by saying hello to someone you don't know. Don't worry about anyone else's disappointment in you. It's only your own that matters. Take risks. Do not give up. Ask for help when you need it. Cultivate humility, for as humans, we are different but equal. Do not be afraid to show passion for what or who you love. Life is short. Appreciate each day. Loneliness passes. Follow a few different leads. You never know which one will turn out. Learn new things. And of course, wash your hands. Thank you.
Got to unmute to talk. Thank you very much for that wonderful story and lecture, Robin. I think it's quite amazing that you talked about your experience and how your university professors and teachers inspired you. And the fact that you've won a Distinguished Teaching Award and you're a teaching chair is a pretty strong indicator that I think you've come full circle to give that back to your students. So with that in mind, I think we have some time for some questions from the audience. I have one here from Ben Beeland that says, Robin, thank you so much for sharing all these incredible stories. As you've continued your incredible career, what other passions have you discovered?
Well, in the last little while, I've been the Associate Dean of Field Experiences, and that has taken my focus a little bit off teaching to really seeing the big picture in what we do in the Faculty of Education. So it's involved overseeing all the practicum placements, and we make between 900 and 1,000 practicum placements every year for student teachers. So I would say I've been able to sort of pivot a little bit and take that passion into the field experience office and make sure that our students have the best experiences that they can have in classrooms. But ultimately, my focus is always on children in schools and youth, and making sure that whatever we do in the Faculty of Education benefits them ultimately. So that's where my passion has been lately.
I have another one from Emily Smith, and she's wondering if your poem's published anywhere, because she'd like to put it on the bulletin board in by her desk in her classroom.
Oh, how lovely. No, because I just finished it at about midnight last night.
Creative juices are flowing, right?
Exactly.
Um, oh, well, we have another one from Anonymous saying, what suggestions would you give to a new graduate looking for a job in these times?
Well, now is an especially interesting time to be graduating. And I would say, if I was graduating right now, and what I would say to all of you is you need to be adaptable. It's a really different world you're graduating into. You need to be flexible, I think, in terms of what is going to be out there. Be planned. I'm always going to say that. Be fully planned and ready, but be ready in another way as well, to be reassuring to students, to understand that regardless of what discipline you teach, it might be math, social studies, science, you're going to need to take the time to focus on students and your own social and emotional development. You're going into classrooms that aren't the same as the classrooms that were left in March. So yes, adaptability, flexibility, open-mindedness, all of that.
Okay, so Taylor Crum asks, I know you said you just finished the poem. Can you please share it so we can have it to go by? I found it very helpful and full of great lessons. So I don't know if you can.
Okay, I'll find a way to do that. Absolutely. I am not a poet, so I can't tell you how appreciative I am of those comments.
So I have a question for you. A lot of your talk focused sort of on the willingness to look at the second most courses and that change, and the resilience through change and not being afraid to take risks, like traveling off to another province all on your own. So why did you decide then to leave that job as a teacher to go back to graduate studies and pursue this new career to become professor and university educator?
Yeah, that's great. Like, I never left teaching because I didn't love it. I was just so blessed with amazing colleagues and administrators and parents and families. But it was just that there was always a question to answer. And I was really lucky that after a couple of years of teaching, the university started their very first master's degree in the Faculty of Education. And in 1994 or 84, oh God, in 1984, and I was accepted into that very first cohort. And it just allowed me to continue to pursue, answering those really important questions about kids and how they learn and how best to be there for them. So it was more that it allowed me, I guess, a slightly different route to work with children.
It's interesting. You've been part of a few milestones. You were there with the first dean, now the son dean. You were part of the first cohort in the MED program. Jason Wagner asks, what advice would you give to yourself as a first-year teacher, knowing what you know now?
Relax. Only because a lot like Adam, I'm a type A personality for sure. I want to do the very best, at whatever I undertake. And I wish I would have just said, it's all going to be fine. Relax, have fun with the kids. I think it took me a while to really relax into the position and learn to just love what it offered, me every day. So yeah, for sure it would be relaxed.
And there's a lot of really kind comments coming in about you too, Robin. So I'll read a few of these for you. Debbie Newman says, "All I ever needed to know about writing, I learned from Robin." Thank you. Yeah. So we have maybe the ability to answer one more question from the audience if anybody has one more for Robin. If not, maybe we'll move on to the next speaker then. Thank you very much for that, Robin. And I guess I hope you can stick around for the rest of the talk.
You bet. Yeah, thank you.